All right, hold on. We're about to go live. All right, and says preparing the live stream.
Got it.
All right, cool. And all right, boys, we're up.
You're done?
Yep, it's on you.
Welcome back to 755 is Real. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer at The Athletic. I'm with my regular co-host, as always, Eric O'Flaherty. What's up, Eric?
What's up, Dave?
And we got a very special guest today, a friend of the show. You guys know him, you love him. Multi-time Brave, multi-time Met. Kelly Johnson, what's up, Kelly? How you doing, man?
Hey, well, yeah, my transaction history kind of that's all I am these days. I'm just, who did you get traded to? Who did you play for? And how many American League East teams did you play for?
It's got to be a fun one when you meet people that don't know much about your career and they ask what team you played for.
What was it? You played for every AL East team, right? In a span of like a year?
AL East, yeah, two-year calendar, all five of them. But yeah,
that's
man,
awesome.
It's pretty funny when people say, "Oh, who did you play for?" I'm like, "Well, 8 teams." And then they want to hear them all, and you're kind of like, "Well, okay." But,
I just say the
whatever.
Mariners because it's quick.
The only guy I know
and you live in.
Yep.
Yeah.
The only guy I've talked to recently who played for more teams than you, but they weren't all in the major leagues, obviously, was Michael Tonkin. That dude played everywhere, 4 countries.
Yeah.
What a story that guy is. What a story he is. And then he made me look good. Eric, I wrote that story. We talked about him in the show Monday.
Dealt the next
Tuesday,
day or that
Tuesday.
night.
It made me look great that night. He pitches 3 scoreless or 3 almost perfect innings. He gave up 1 hit.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff. You wonder how guys like that, why it took so long to click, but props to him for sticking with it till it did.
Yeah, because right now he's
got
a spot.
You got Jesse Chavez. Chavez played on more teams than I had in the big leagues. So he's actually I was looking at him.
Guy.
He does a lot of repeats.
He does.
Yeah, he does a lot of repeats though. He went back to the Cubs. He went back. Back to the Braves, back to the Royals. I mean, different teams.
4 times with the Braves. 4 times with the Braves. That says a lot about a guy's character, though, right? The teams want him back.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said when I was down there in spring doing some radios. When he pitched, I said the same thing. I said when you get a guy like that, he's been traded a lot or he's been around, but if you look at his transactions, he's going back as a free agent or as a trade to the same teams. That says
they want him back.
That basically tells you this guy's a good dude and they want him in that clubhouse. And, you can see why, obviously.
And he came back to the Braves this time on a minor league deal, but, obviously they let him know you're going to make the team if you pitch well. And he did. And right now, he and Tonkin have been the biggest guys in the pen as far as innings and scoreless innings and all that. I mean, they've been, especially with Colin out, because Colin's just huge.
That rolls more important.
And that's a huge that can't go overlooked because we've got obviously Iglesias in the bullpen and he's on the DL, so he's going to come back but obviously he comes back and we expect him to be great, but it doesn't just typically doesn't just happen. Like he's going to need time to build back up, just like we're seeing with Kirby Yates, Nick Anderson. You got guys like that, they need their time to get back to being who they were. And you got guys stepping up like Tompkin and Chavi and Lee and those guys. So, I mean, you're just building depth. Yeah.
Yeah, because Mentor had pitched back-to-back nights, so they went to Nick Anderson night before last, and he pitched great, got the save. Yeah. It's been a here's the thing. They've been without Iglesias, so he'll go out on a rehab assignment. He hasn't pitched off the mound yet unless he did it yesterday, but I don't think he did. He's going to need a little rehab assignment, but they'll get McHugh back next week. He's not going to go on rehab. If he does, it'll be 1. And because he threw off the mound yesterday. He told me he had his best velo yesterday, throwing off the mound yesterday that he's had all year. So he's going to travel with the team to KC, work out there once, to come home when they go to San Diego probably. Go on a rehab and then he'll be activated next week. But the bullpen, second most innings in the majors this year, 54. The 4th best whip 107, which leads the NL. Fourth lowest opponent's average, 199, which also leads the NL. And that's without their closer and without McHugh for most of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. That's your, you know, that stuff better than me. But I mean, what I would say about all that that's so impressive is, you know, the starting pitching has guys, you know, depth and numbers and all that. But sometimes your starters, you got some injuries like we got. They stretch out and start doing really well. At some point, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they need to pick up innings to give the bullpen a rest. But right now, the bullpen's picking them up. And to be able to do both, man, that's where good teams really set themselves apart.
It's been so crucial because you had 4 starts by the 2 prospects. 3 of those went sideways, did not go well at all. So they ate up a lot of innings in those, you know, with Schuster leaving really early, Dodd leaving early in one of his. And then even like Strider, you know, going 5 innings instead of 7, you know, that's been just about every night. I mean, they haven't been getting many 6 and 7 innings so far at all. And they've covered them.
Yeah. Well, Snit clearly sees what I think everyone else is seeing. And it feels like a plan to me. It doesn't feel like this is just, you know, oh crap, you know,
right,
we need to go to our bullpen again. I think they know what they've got and the depth they've got, and they're taking advantage. And I think it's the right move, personally.
He's been smart too, and not. I mean, there's been plenty of occasions where nobody would have questioned, you know, like taking Schuster out of a start early.
right.
Dodds the other day. He's aware that you can't ride like this all year long, so he's given the starters a chance, and you know it's paid off. It paid off in Schuster's first start. But for me, the most important role in the pen these days is that 6th, 7th, you know, being able to get through that, keep the game close. If you're down 1 or 2, 8th, 9th, because most teams have a pretty lights out dude for the 8th and 9th. But so many games, and the Braves bullpen's done an amazing job, and that's why they have such a good record. But so many games are decided in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning after that starter comes out.
Yeah, that bridge has been really strong, man, because like you said, they could have taken a lot of managers would have pulled Schuster out of there in the first inning.
Yep.
And Snit let it. That was a brutal inning to watch. They batted through the order, and he kept him. He kept him in, and he ends up saving a bullpen because then he settled down and pitched great for really well for the next 3 or 4 innings.
Yeah.
So there's been a couple of nights like that where he could have really knee-jerk reaction and panicked and got a guy out of there and didn't.
And the easy move is to yank him. That's the easy move, you know, because you don't have to answer questions about that.
Right. And it helps both the team, obviously the bullpen, but also the kid. He's not destroyed. Schuster would have been destroyed in his debut if he'd have got yanked before the end of the first inning.
That's
after
where you
walking
asking,
2 guys, walked 2
Nationals
bases,
too.
2 bases loaded walks.
Yeah,
that would have hung on him down in AAA for my God.
Yeah.
A couple of facts. I wanted to add a couple of facts before we get into last night. Acuna. You still see some people on Twitter say, I can't believe they're still batting Acuna leadoff when he hits a home run every time. Why is he batting leadoff on this team? Acuna this year, as the first batter in the first inning this season, leading off games, is 8 for 12, 667, 2 doubles, a homer, 1 walk, no strikeouts, 1,083 slugging, and a 1776 OPS, leading off the Braves games this year. Among hitters with at least 15 at-bats in the majors this year, leading off any inning, because he's really good leading off a lot of innings. But among hitters with at least 15 ABs leading off an inning, Acuna leads the majors, 500 average. He's 550. He's 11 for 20, and leads the majors with a 1441 OPS. That's leading off any inning. The guy gets so fired up leading off innings and jumps on first pitch fastballs. He doesn't get many more of them. He's already seen at least 2 or 3 first pitch sliders this year to start games.
I'd throw him one every time.
Yeah.
I mean, you know he's coming up there to do damage.
Yeah. But man, he's just re-energized.
Why would you move him? I don't see any reason to move him. Number one, you got the DH. Obviously,
Yeah.
you're getting your best hitter up as many times or your most dangerous hitter up as many times as possible. It's the way these lineups are constructed these days.
Yeah.
You got your best hitters hitting first, second. It's not your best hitter hitting third anymore. That just doesn't really come into play. And we still got Riley and Olson.
Yeah.
Not to mention the guys behind them aren't bad either. So, why would you in the Braves lineup? There is zero reason to think there's no good explanation to move him back. I can't think of one.
And even if it was conventional, you can't dismiss the fact that this is a special kid, special athlete, and there's something about leading off the games because he's very flamboyant. He's very much a, showy type guy. He likes to be out there to start the game with his music playing. He likes to go out there, set the tone. So more power to him because a lot of guys don't want to do that. He wants it. He loves it. And he don't want to ease into the game. He wants to go out there and swing at the first pitch.
He's ready.
Yeah. So, he's a dream come true as a leadoff guy. He's like the modern day leadoff guy in so many ways. And now with the rules this year, he's running like crazy again because he's healthy. He's got 6 stolen bases already. I mean, they've played 14 games. So, these guys can almost steal at will, Eric. The fast guys, they're just stealing at will. The success rate is huge.
Kelly, did you think it'd make that much of a difference making the bag like however much bigger it is?
I think it's the pickoff throws more than anything myself.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't think that the bag really has anything to do with it. That would all come down just in bang bang plays and who's keeping that stat. I don't know if anyone's going to keep that stat or not, but I've been reading some articles and seeing some things said about base stealing is kind of becoming a little bit of an art again. And there's been some new, not new methods, it's kind of old methods that are now being kind of rethought.
Oh,
and,
the Yankee
part
thing?
of it is, exactly. There's a little bit of a momentum hop. It used to be that was how you were taught to steal third. If you were at second and you were going to steal third, you couldn't do it from a standstill. You had to have a little momentum, and it was a little bit more about timing. Well, that's become this new fad from first. So I think between that and between the idea that the pitch clock, if you really think about a pitcher getting the ball and ready to make his pitch in that 20 seconds or 15 or whatever it is,
15 with no runners on base, 20 with a runner.
That only helps the base stealer. I mean, they know what kind of timing you're working with, and at some point he has to go home or pick off. And I think at some point you just know what you're going to get, and you start taking some really educated guesses. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, coaching staff and front offices, they employ people that just watch pitchers' pickoff moves. And I had a coach one time that he could whistle, he could say my last name. He gave a cue, some kind of verbal cue that said, "Hey, you are 100% not gonna get picked off right here. He's going home." So
by how he came said or something like that.
He could just see the signs. Maybe he knew the manager's sign to the catcher. Maybe he could see the catcher's sign. Whatever it was, they've always got somebody that's doing that stuff, and they know without a shadow of a doubt, like, hey, they are not picking off right here. So you're good. And if you get that kind of info, that kind of scouting, watch out. I mean, you're just going to run like crazy.
And after the guy has thrown over once, I thought that it would really affect it if he throws over two, because then he's either got to pick them off or it's a balk. But actually, it's not. It's only taken one.
Yeah, nobody wants to get to two.
They know he doesn't want to get to two.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's like Michael Harris was telling me. It's like they get that one, and it's take your base. It's off to the races. They're going. So, but I read that Yankee story, man. That's fascinating to see the video that was in the Athletic, and they had the video of him doing that. And what it is that little hop. And a lot of teams are still kind of questioning it because they think that once you get both feet in the air, you're so vulnerable. But apparently the Yankees have figured it out that most pitchers can't do that, react that quickly. And that momentum you get from that little hop when both feet are in the air, with that little hop
it's like a spring.
Yeah. And they led the minor leagues in stolen bases the last couple of years. The Yankees did. And so far, their major league team this year has employed that, and they're really up in stolen bases this year. So it'll be interesting to see if other teams, because how baseball is, everybody quickly adopts to something if it works.
Oh yeah, no, that'll make its way around. I mean, but for sure. Yeah. I mean, and the pitchers will make an adjustment. You know, who knows? But I think the stolen bases have gone up is a good thing. I think it's a good part of the game. And I also love. I know people are torn on it. I love that the shift is banned. I mean, I love seeing guys hit the ball hard and get rewarded versus hang with them. Like, we've got 7 guys on the right side of the field. And you're out. And I know that, again, I get all the arguments. But I absolutely love it. I mean, I've seen a number of guys roll over, especially left-handed hitters, roll over and hit it hard, and you're thinking, wow, someone will be there. But now, no, it's a base hit. I don't know. It's good to see. It's nice that it's generating more offense and all that.
And you know what I'll also love? I love seeing second basemen make that play again that we haven't seen for years, going to their left, getting the ball at the back of the dirt, throwing to first, because we haven't seen that for so long, because there's been a guy standing in shallow right field taking that ball and the second baseman playing over towards the bag.
You're right.
How much do you think that affects a lefty's batting average, Kelly?
It's got him. I mean, I have zero statistics to back up anything. I haven't looked into it, but I mean, you can just look at the guys that we played
Olson
with. I know for myself. Look at Brian McCann.
Yeah.
I mean, prime example of a guy that was like a 300 hitter, and then they start shifting him, and all of a sudden he's like a 240 hitter, and that alone. I mean, that happened to every left-handed hitter, except for very few, but. Whatever. I mean, it is what it is, but it's. I like that we're getting hits again. I like seeing base hits. It's nice.
Look at Olson. I got a stat here for Olson, which kind of plays into what you're saying, because as much as he struck out, he's leading the majors in strikeouts right now with 22, because he's had a couple of golden sombreros already. 22 strikeouts and 61 plate appearances, but he's tied for second in the NL with 9 extra base hits, tied for fourth in the NL with 4 homers, and he's hitting .294 with a .410 OBP while leading the majors in strikeouts. That goes to what you're saying, because that's the difference in those hits he's had through the right side. Just a few hits makes a big difference. So,
the biggest benefit for a lefty used to be, too, if you had a runner on first base, and they had to hold him on. That hole was so big. Give up so many cheap ground ball singles over there. In the last, 5-10 years, it's just been, well, guess what? There's 2 guys standing up, There's a guy right in that hole, and then there's a shortstop, off to the second base side of first base, and they crush a ball, and it's a double play.
And he's got Acuna on first base almost every time to start.
Yeah, that's a good setup for him.
And Riley coming up behind him. I mean, he's in the ideal hitting position, Olson is.
Yeah.
He's got
to get a lot better than that. He's been impressive. I mean, I know everyone paid attention to how monster that spring training was for him, but Braves fans have seen it before. Guys, JD Drew, Andrew Jones, I'm sure there's been others that they were locked in from day one of camp, and you have these exceptional hitters. And I mean, I think Matt Olson's in for one heck of a year, and just by going off of that, he's been locked in from the beginning. So whatever he did in the off season, I mean, he did it right. It's clicking. So it's gonna be exciting to follow him.
He worked with that dude Krieger at 3P, and you could see if you look at video from last year to this year, how much he was shifting all his weight to his back foot, and then as he called it, and he had sites called it, crashing forward with his hands, and it just made him so vulnerable to so many pitches. And this year he's able to wait on balls longer, use the whole field. I mean, he's getting line drive hits. He's had a couple up the left field line.
Yeah.
Pulling balls. He's hitting tons of balls up the middle, like that monster home run was just to the right of center. I mean, he's using the whole field. Chipper had a great point. Chipper was saying what's really impressed Chipper about him this year is he's got this checklist, obviously, that even when he has a terrible day, instead of it being stretched to like 0 for 20 like it did last year when he had that horrible skid, the worst slump of his life in September, this year it's not lasted more than a day. And he came back from the Golden Sombrero in St. Louis where he was 0 for 5 with 4 Ks. And the next day had 2 doubles and a home run. The next day game after the night game when he had the Golden Sombrero. And then last night he has 4 Ks. So, I mean, he's able to snap out of it. He's able to go back and do these checklists that he's put together with Krieger. I think, yes, Krieger's his name, former minor league hitter. And really, it's just night and day how good he looks at the plate this year.
Yeah. He's been impressive. I mean, listen, that Braves lineup. Yeah, he's doing all right. I mean, the Braves have really built a strong group of position players. I mean, it's exciting to watch. I mean, that lineup's no joke. I mean, we're talking about the base stealing, and I mean, it took all of 2 innings to watch Sean Murphy catch and throw to be like, okay, that's a weapon.
Yeah.
So,
we talked about it all spring, and then the first time I saw it live in a game, somebody trying to run on him, how quick he got rid of it, it's like, all right, you got to see it sometimes. But I was like, I get it now.
Kelly, when they did throwing drills in spring training this year, they did more of them this year, throwing to third and doing back picks, which they haven't really worked on in the past because with the new rules. When he was throwing with the other catchers, people would stop and go over there to watch him throw. It was so impressive and so unusual. I mean, it stands out. It's like there's 7 catchers throwing, and when he would throw, it'd be like, okay, that's just totally different. That's like, Acuna in a batting cage. I mean, that's the equivalent of it. The sound different off his bat. Well, the view is different with this guy throwing.
The ball fly, that hissing sound when it comes out of his hand.
Yeah. The pitcher said when he throws about him out, you can hear it just hissing. You got to get the hell out of the way, man.
Yeah, that's whip.
He's impressive. And he's the most unassuming, quiet guy, ultimate teammate. He gets to the ballpark and his head's buried in the book. He researches everything. He is no nonsense, man. Everybody loves the guy. Good dude.
Yep. Fun to watch, man. It's going to be a good year.
Hey, one more on Acuna before we move on here. Also, leading off an inning for his career, he's now got 880 plate appearances leading off an inning, which is a little less than 2 seasons worth of plate appearances leading off an inning. He has hit 288 with 38 doubles, 4 triples, 53 home runs leading off an inning. 547 slug and 905 OPS leading off innings.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's got his legs back.
Oh, yeah. And his arm and the outfield, man. He's making plays that last year he just would not try to make. Coming in, diving. He's making all those plays now. And he might even miss a ball, but he's trying to get it, and he's limited into a single and then getting up through a couple of guys out that tried to go to second on him when he missed a catch.
That was probably the most noticeable thing for me with him watching him last year was when he had to run full speed and then slow down fast to get a ball in the outfield and that kind of prepare to change directions. Right. He would look pretty ginger a lot of times doing that. And this year he looks ready.
And they said that's what the ACL coming back, the deceleration is what really bothers you.
Yeah. You could see it. I don't see it this year.
Not at all. Not at all. I haven't seen it. He doesn't even put ice on it after games either. He's not even like needing anything.
That's a good sign.
Kelly, you still got a few minutes?
Yeah, I'm good. I got about 10 to 15, I think.
Oh, okay. Last night, man, the Braves escaped a potentially devastating injury last night when Arcia gets hit on the left wrist by a Hunter Green 98-mile-an-hour fastball. And it hit him pretty flush, too. And immediate reaction is, I thought hamate bone. Then it looked like it was more on the wrist. And I thought, that might be a broken wrist. But he wears so much tape and so tightly taped and right to his gloves, which are also really tight and I think padded. I think it might have helped save him last night because they did x-rays. He stayed in the game for the rest of the inning, but came out before they had a pinch hitter. Adrian's a pinch hit because it started swelling and started hurting. And he did x-rays, negative. So, I mean, if this guy, the way he's playing, had a fractured wrist, that would be really rough because he's off to a tremendous start on both sides of the ball. I mean, he's playing as well defensively as he's hitting.
Yeah, I mean, you would hate to see something like that. That story does not need to happen. I mean, he hung around. He's been there, kind of just, you know, being a contributor. And the way things shook out, you know, to be able to have that job. I mean, he earned it, but at the same time, I think everyone would probably agree that he was going to be some kind of placeholder.
Yeah,
but he's not playing like a placeholder. I mean, he's
right.
And I know that, you know, from talking to guys in spring training, you know, the concern with him is, and it is for a lot of guys, is how do they handle mentally and physically being an everyday guy? There's a little bit of concern with him. His tendencies have been, when he's gotten extended time,
Right.
that he looks a little more fatigued, loses a little bit of focus. You know, it's a real, you know, separator between the guys that are making $100 million and the guys
Right.
that, you know, piece together a good career as a backup. So he's got a long way to go, but he looks great. I think them being aware of that, they can sprinkle in off days. They can kind of take care of him. And, you know, I would hate to see anything happen to him because he's really taken this opportunity. You know, it's just been so fun to watch him play. His defense has been phenomenal.
Don't you think having that role taken away from you, you know, I think it's easy the first time to take it for granted, but then, you know, knowing as a player how hard it is to shake that, all right, you're a bench platoon guy, you're a backup role, that if you ever get a chance to be an everyday starter or something like that again, you know, you can't do a ton about fatigue, I don't think, you know, if you're not built for it. But as far as the focus questions go, I think that second time, you know, kind of that rejuvenation of, hey, I got a chance to be a starter again and knowing what it feels like versus doing that bench role and then trying to stay ready, you know, that could help him and be kind of eye-opening for a lot of guys.
Yeah, and last year, he really impressed last year when he was filling in for Ozzy before he got hurt too with the hamstring. And that's what gave Grissom his opportunity. But before Grissom came up, I mean, Arcia was playing great in that second base role in place of Ozzy. And then after Grissom, people forget Grissom had an incredible first 2 weeks, but then he really slumped badly. And Snit went back to Arcia down the very stretch. And in the playoffs, he started Arcia at second base.
Yep.
What were you going to say, Kelly?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think what O was saying, you know, yeah, that is a good point. And he's young enough to where,
28.
You know, he can get that opportunity. Yeah, he can get that opportunity and have sort of a second chance, you know, at being an everyday guy. I mean, he was there at 21 in Milwaukee. I mean, he was a big prospect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
15 homer seasons for them as their shortstop.
Yeah. He's tooled up. I mean, he moves well. He can hit. He's got pop. He plays great D. He's got a good arm. I mean, but I like that. I like just watching him. I mean, he just looks fun. He looks at it like there's some energy there, you know, that's some, you know, not, he's not an energy sucker, you know, he's you're either giving or you're taking it. I mean, I think he's given. I mean, so I think it's, you know, it's really nice surprise. I think, I mean, I think if you would have asked anybody, I mean, I did, I asked people I talked to and I asked Snit, I mean, for him hitting ninth and just D'ing up, just play great D. And I think anything that came out of the bat was going to be gravy. So he's doing exceptional with the bat, you know, so now he's bumped up and he's hitting 6th, 7th. So, you know.
Yeah, I love watching him play shortstop because he's got that Latin kind of flair, but he makes all the standard plays he's supposed to make. And then he makes a couple of others, like the one the other day where he backhanded the ball and shoveled it to Ozzy at second. Ozzy wasn't even like, whoa. It was like, it was beautiful. But he's got a cannon, man, and it's accurate. He's got a strong arm. And his feet and his hands are so quick and work so well. I tell people, I said, look, because, you know, I think you're right about, I mean, he was driven because he hears all winter how Grissom is working out with Wash down in New Orleans, you know, and the one-on-one drills and all that. And it was basically portrayed as it's going to be Grissom or Arcia but it was kind of like with that tone of it's Grissom's to lose. If Grissom does all this work and shows he's ready, we're going with the younger guy. That was like what was said without saying. And I know Arcia saw that and like, what have I got to do? So the guy goes down and plays winter ball and focuses on offense and some changes he made in the swing because he's already confident in the defense. He knows the defense is there. And he did some work on his swing in the winter, and he looks much better at the plate on a consistent basis this year. The ABs have been really good, and the defense has never faltered at all. Whether he's at second or short, he's really good. I mean, he's well above average defensively. I tell people, Grissom cannot play defense like Arcia right now at shortstop, and probably never will. I don't know. Shoemake can play it, but no better than Arcia defensively. He's no better, that's for sure. And Arcia's got a lot better arm. And Arcia's hitting circles around Shoemake right now. So it ends up they picked the right guy. At least for now, he's the right guy, man.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think he's proven it.
And they sent Shoemake down because they wanted him to work some at second and keep hitting because they weren't sold on just him doing it at spring training because his offensive stats have sucked in the minors. I mean, let's be honest. Well, he's gone down this year in AAA. He's playing mostly second. Grissom is short. Shoemake playing some short, but Shoemake has really struggled offensively. Grissom's still hitting like he's raking at AAA like he should. Shoemake's hitting like 185 now, I think, and his OPS is in low 500s. So he obviously wasn't ready, and they knew it. So they weren't ready to roll the dice and go with one of those young guys. They went with the steady veteran, and he's surpassed all expectations. Arcia has.
Yep.
I asked Strider about it after he came out of the game last night. I said, "How relieved were you guys when you got the news that Arcia's X-rays were negative, that he didn't have a fracture?" And let me find this. He said, "Yeah, that would have been." He said, "Just the way Arcia is going right now, that would have been the worst thing ever." Strider said. He said, "So definitely felt for him and glad it's not too serious, and hopefully he's able to get back out there as soon as possible." Snit said Arcia said no on the IL when we asked him. He understood that part, and he didn't even need that translated. He said no. Snit kind of characterized it as he's going to be sore today. They're going to treat him up all day. They got an off day, which really helps. And then they can treat him up all morning tomorrow. He made it sound like the IL is not likely. So, because if they think he's only going to miss a couple of days, that's fine. They could play Adrian's at short for a day and then get him in there. So they won't IL him for, 10 days if they don't think he'll only need to miss 1 or 2 games. So, but that part of the decision probably won't be made till tomorrow.
Good, very good news.
Yeah, the way he's playing. I mean, because they've had a little spate of injuries here after having a pretty healthy spring. They've had some guys go down, and so far they've been able to compensate for it. I mean, you lose Michael Harris, that's a pretty big blow, but the guys have filled in pretty well at center.
No, so the Braves have put themselves in a tier of teams, a very small tier. I mean, we know the Dodgers are in it.
Yeah.
Right.
And even teams like the Astros, definitely, but even teams like a San Diego, yes, they are loaded, but they do not have the depth.
Right.
They can't afford to lose Soto. They can't afford to lose Blake Snell or
Machado,
Nick Martinez or Machado. They can't do it, and they can't. Whoever's coming in to fill their spot is not on the same level as who comes in for the Dodgers, who comes in for the Braves, who fills in for the Astros, and it's just the truth, I mean, look at the Phillies.
Right.
The Phillies have lost Harper and now Hoskins. I mean, that's big blows. But if the Braves were to lose Michael Harris and then pick one more guy, that's still an elite team. And the Dodgers are built that way too. And that's what this game is. Like we've just discussed the whole bullpen depth. Everyone knows that they were starting a starting rotation out of about 10 guys. Like who can say that?
And they lost like 4 of them to
9.
injuries. They've lost like 4 of the starters to injuries early on. But instead of thrusting some guy in there, some non-prospect, and crossing your fingers, they've got legitimate guys. Like Elder comes up and he's pitched his ass off 2 times already.
Yeah.
So yeah, what you're saying is so true, man. And people that outside the game or that don't, they kind of maybe poo-poo when they talk about keeping depth and that kind of thing. But that's where Alex is so elite as a GM. He is not just making the obvious moves, the sexy moves that get all the attention, the trade for the big guy. He's filling in, backfilling, getting guys that you're like, they needed another outfielder or they needed another starter. And look at guys like Eli White and Hilliard that are playing center field. So he's not having to play a guy in center that has never played center or can't play it at the major league level. He's putting elite athletes out there that at least can play good defense. And Hilliard's had a couple of big knocks too.
Yeah.
And catcher,
I've said
you lose an all-star catcher, Darno, and you got Murphy there.
And talking about Alex in the past, I mean, I've said it before. I mean, coming from the Dodgers, being with Andrew Friedman, like Farhan Saidi was over there for a while. You can't replace what they do over there, but you can learn it and apply it. And Alex absorbed it and soaked it in. And the goal over there with the Dodgers, I mean, I have some friends over there. They want to build a major league 40-man roster, not just a 25-man roster, but a 40-man roster that's going to have a WAR that is way better than yours. That's their goal. From top to bottom, 40 guys, highest WAR in the game, and that's depth. And Alex is copying and taking whatever it is that they've got over there, and he's done it in his own way with his own twist, and it's been outstanding. I mean, since he walked in the door, he's changed everything. And this team, I mean, it's no more are we just, hey, we've got this guy making 20, 30 mil and this guy, and if they go down, we're screwed. No, I mean, we're set.
I mean, he makes the trade for Murphy, and I said during spring training that I thought Murphy's trade is going to end up being probably the biggest transaction that the Braves made and maybe any team in the league made. I mean, it's that big with the rule changes and all that. He jumped right on that after those rule changes went into effect, made that trade now instead of waiting a year for Darno to get older. And you get him and you're like, are they going to keep Darno too? And what happens if you look at Darno's track record? He has a lot of freaky injuries. He has an injury. He's only had like 2 or 3 healthy years in his whole career. They lose Darno a week into the season.
Hey, what'd you think about that play?
The concussion play?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't have really any thoughts on it. I mean, it's just nothing stood out to me. Did you think it was a little, should have been called a different way?
No, I was just, I always ask position players on something like that. Like, should he have slid or tried to avoid it? Or, it happens fast. So I try to just let a position player tell me whether I should be pissed off or not, when it happens to somebody on my team.
No, I mean, it seemed all right. I didn't have a problem with it personally, but.
And the fact that the Braves, none of them even like off the record were saying like, oh, we'll see when we get out to San Diego.
Right.
I thought Odor's explanation, I mean, I thought it was legit. I know people were pissed because you see one of your favorite guys go down and it looks like, with the new rules, that's not supposed to happen. But you cannot just make rules that eliminate the violence in the game. It's a rough game. There's going to be plays like that at the plate. The throws take you into the play sometime, or you have to dive over to try to make a stop. And I thought Odor, who tore up his knee on a really similar play the last time he did it, so he didn't want to go sliding in feet first. Because as a runner, that happens a lot. Look what happened to O'Neal Cruz. It was a bad slide, but you see what happened. And then he said he was going to go in head first. And if you look at the video, he is leaning forward like he's about to dive. And then he thought, if I do that now, we could have a head-to-head collision. And they could have.
Yeah.
The way they were coming over, it could have been head-to-head on helmet to helmet. So I thought that sounded sincere, his explanation for it. And Darno just kind of, he could have done that. He could have just waved at him, with the glove.
You got to do a swipe tag or something, but
and then you might get
you don't know where he's going to be.
Right. Look what happened when he did that. He got his thumb torn up on that play against Toronto a couple of years ago where he missed half the season when he tore the thumb ligament. So it's just catching is tough, man. There's a reason not many catchers last 15, 20 years.
It's like one thing if you're an outfielder that's always getting hurt and having weird injuries, you kind of get that label. But for a catcher, it's like you get a free pass if you've had some freak injuries and weird stuff because there's just so many strange plays, foul balls, different things that can wind up hurting you. Even a foul ball can give you a concussion. I know David Ross got a few of those. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't question Darno's durability at all.
So if they had not made that trade, though, right now you would have as your catchers Contreras and Trump. And
Yep.
while Contreras was an all-star, that was for his hitting last year.
Yep.
He's okay as a catcher, but he's not even in the league with Murphy or even
Right.
Darno, really, as far as calling a game. He's just learning still as a young catcher, learning how to handle a pitching staff. And with these young pitchers they've got, that would not have been a good recipe to have it. Contreras have to play every day, basically, or Trump in there. So, I mean, that trade is looking golden right now. I asked Sean Murphy, I said, are you prepared when he had the walk-off home run to dead center the other night? I asked him, I said, are you prepared now? Because that was the day after Darno was hurt. I said, are you prepared to play every day if that's what they need you to do? And he went, absolutely. So, I mean, he's a big, strong dude. It looks like he could play all 162 if he needs to.
He seems like that tough leader.
He's built for it.
That guy you look to those were the guys I liked at catcher, like kind of tough, hard-nosed dudes, He seems like he fits that mold perfectly.
It looks like he forgot to take the hanger out of his shirt when he walks in, too.
Yeah, he's a big dude. He takes some big hacks.
The shoulders are like this. The shoulders are just square, man.
Yeah.
But I didn't even mention what Arcia is hitting, by the way. He's 333, 2 homers, 7 ribbies, 400 OBP, and 911 OPS. And that's like bad. That was hitting ninth in the first 10 games of the season or 9 games of the season, something like that. He entered Wednesday, tied for 8th in the majors in hard hit balls, too. He's crushing balls. Tied for 9th in the league in runs with 10. Him and Acuna both had 10. So, yeah, he's been huge down at the bottom of the order and now moving up in the order. So you lose a Gold Glove shortstop a year after losing Freddie, and the team is just so far they've just kept going, and they legitimately might have a better team than they had last year, even though they won 101 games last year. When they get healthy, this is going to be a better team than it was last year. When they get healthy.
Well, that's the thing about bringing all your guys back. Having these guys for such a long time is you got so many guys that are still getting better. It's not an old team where you're right. Remember that Phillies team? You were just waiting for Father Time to kick in, and you knew that they didn't have anybody else coming behind them. They were going to have to do a full rebuild. Like, this team is just full of young guys locked up for eternity.
Philly waited too long, and the Red Sox waited too long after their World Series because they want to go for it one more time, and they don't want to disappoint their fans. But you make that mistake, and Alex is prepared to stand by his decisions, to not overcommit in length to a guy, and you're like, oh man, I'd make an exception for Freddie or for Dansby.
For Freddie. Yeah.
He won't do it. And I think ultimately 5 years from now, he's going to be looking pretty good for not doing it. But we'll see.
Oh, for sure.
But that guy's confident. That's a guy with gravitas as a GM, president of baseball operations, job security. It's been told, you run the show, man. Whatever you think is best. And every time he goes to him and asks him for more money, they give it to him because they know if he wants it, there's a reason.
Yeah.
So this organization's in great hands with him. I tell you what, whatever they have is a limit for what they would pay executives. If somebody like the Dodgers, if Friedman moves on, or if somebody moves on from one of these teams and goes after Alex, if I'm the Braves, I'm matching it because this guy, do not want to lose this guy. He might be the hardest guy to replace in the organization right now.
Yeah, I agree. But he'll. I'm guessing there's going to be some Braves like Perry already left, and there's going to be other guys coming up. I mean, you see that model with the Tampa Bay Rays and the Dodgers.
Dana's the GM with Houston now.
Dana, yeah. So I suspect things happen, but we certainly are in a good spot. That's for sure.
That's pretty good. 2 of his assistants, for as little time as he's been here already, 2 of his assistants are GMs on other teams now, and they're big market teams, the Astros and the Angels. So, Dana hurts losing him a scouting director. We won't know how much it hurts until later. Obviously, they didn't even replace him in season because it's too late to get a scouting director. Really, for other teams are. You're going to want to go after a good scouting director when you do that after the season's over. But anyway, hey, last night I wanted to ask you, Eric, about Snit called it maybe the best mound visit he's seen because of the results. Strider just lauded his pitching coach for coming out and in so many words saying, I think the words that he used were something along the lines of, what the fuck is wrong with you? Strider put it as, he asked me, am I okay? In so many words I won't use here. But Crandy went out there when he was dilly-dallying around, walked a guy, threw 94, 95-mile-an-hour fastballs on a ball 3 and 4 and a 4-pitch walk. That inning was going, it was like, what is going on? And Cranny went out to him and he balked on a would-be strike 3. He balked because he didn't come set. And then he loses the guy because he ends up walking him. So that was when Cranny went out there because it loaded the bases. Granites went out there and lit a fire under him. And basically, Strider told him, this isn't spring training, man. These are not the bullpens. This is not time to work and make everything perfect because Strider said he made him realize I've been worried too much about pacing myself, slowing my delivery, doing all this shit, trying to go 7-8 innings instead of, perfecting what he did last year, trying to go deeper instead of just going after people like he did last year. And he said it took Granites coming out and saying that to him to make him realize, he's right. And that's not what I do best. I need to just go after people and be competitive every pitch. And that's what he did. And it was night and day after that. He retired the last 9 batters he faced, struck out 5 of the last 7. And after his velo was down 96, 97 most of the night, he was going 98, 99. His last pitch of the game, he struck out the last 2 batters on 6 pitches total. Last pitch was 99-6, so 100.
Yeah, everybody has a different mentality that they thrive with. There are a lot of major league pitchers that can spot up, make their pitches. They like to think their way through an outing, and that's good for them. But if you're not one of those guys, and you get critiqued so much in the major leagues, whether it's you're not going deep enough in the games, or you're going too deep in counts, or all you do is throw hard. There's always these criticisms, and it's your natural tendency as a player to want to fix that. You want to be perfect. You want to show you can pitch too. And I think I saw him say something like last night he was trying to go deeper in the game and pace himself. And
what you said he's been doing for the first 3 starts. And
a lot of guys don't thrive in that mindset. Even for me as a reliever, if I tried to come in and make pitches or whatever, I had to come in and just be pissed off and throw it as hard as I could. It only said 92, 93 up there, but I was throwing it as hard as I could because that effort level matched up with, my delivery. My best control was at max effort. And there's a lot of guys that the best life on their balls at max effort. When they try to take a little off, the slider hangs. The fastball loses that extra gear. And I noticed that there was a lot of foul balls, on those pitches up in the zone that normally when it's 100, they swing right through. So sometimes it just takes a kick in the ass and somebody telling you to snap out of it and telling you it's okay, go for it, let it eat and get after these guys because you're not being yourself right now. And just perfect timing on that mound visit, and good job spotting that.
Yeah, he said
it. Real quick. Yeah, Kelly's got to get going, guys.
Oh, sorry, Kelly. Kelly's got things to do. So thanks so much for being on here, Kelly. We really appreciate it. We'll have you on again soon, man.
Good talking to you, Kelly.
Good job with you guys. Yeah, man. See you guys.
Kelly's doing some radio. Kelly's doing some Braves radio, you guys, for people that didn't know about that. He's doing a few series this year, so be on the lookout for that. Thanks, Kelly.
He's gone. But yeah, that mound visit, for me is just, it's just sometimes, and when it's coming from your pitching coach too, you're like, okay, gloves off, let's go. It just seemed like it snapped him into attack mode versus pitch mode. And I don't want to say pitch mode's bad, but some guys just thrive in that aggressive attack. I'm giving it everything I have. And, 5 or 6 Shetty's a lot better than 7 with 4 runs or 5 runs.
Right. Because last year, if you look at it, he spent the first couple of months in the season in the bullpen and was just going out there and letting it eat. Go as long as you can. So he had a couple of 2, maybe went 3. I think it was more like 2 1/3, 2 2/3. So they said, let's move him to the rotation, but they didn't want him to change anything when they did. Just said, go as hard as you can for as long as you can, but don't pace yourself. Well, being a cerebral guy like he is, he had an incredible season last year, fastest pitcher ever to 200 strikeouts, low ERA. He had time to think about it in the offseason. I think he thought, okay, if I just control it a little more, pace it a little more, I go 7 or 8 innings instead of 5, 6 innings. I'll be a Cy Young candidate or whatever. Yeah. So, but that, like you said, that doesn't work for him. And the difference in 96 or 97 is going in last night. His average velo this year was 97.2. Last year was 98.2.
Yeah.
And he's going a lot more 96s, where last year was a lot more 99, 100, 101. He hadn't been hitting those. That makes all the difference for a guy like him that operates up in that zone, come from that angle we've talked about, where guys just can't catch up with it.
Yeah. And, sometimes I noticed it in my career. I think we talked about this the last episode, but an aggressive, convicted pitch versus a scared pitch, or just a not 100% all in on this pitch type of throw. The ones that you're like 85% sure of get crushed every time. But whenever you throw a pitch with 100% conviction, it's something about the direction of your body, the fearlessness, everything coming right at that target. It just gives the ball a different life, and the hitters feel that aggression, and you just get away with stuff, and balls get popped up. It's a different mentality. And some guys, like Zach Greinke, he can do anything he wants with a baseball, and he's so smart, and he's been doing it so long that like that pitching, going out there and controlling it in that way, it works for him. But other guys, I just need the catcher to put down a sign, and I'm throwing the shit as hard as I can right at the glove. And anytime I was in that mindset in my career, it worked. And so that's like a reliever mindset. You get transferred to the starting rotation. The big thing about that jump was there was low expectations for the depth he was going to give you. So you get a free pass. If you wind up going 4 innings and striking out 9, it's like, oh, he's still building. He can keep building. And you are still building, but you don't ever have that thought of, I got to go 6, I got to go 7, I got to go 8. And ideally he gets to that point, but maybe it's not an effort level adjustment as much as it's a conditioning thing, or just doing it over and over and just building up that stamina in that way of like, here's my stamina at my effort level, I need to succeed. And I think that'll be a valuable lesson for him that he probably learned last night. I
mean, the Braves would take the season he had last year as a starter
over a year.
In a year. We don't need you to go any longer. If that's what you do, that's what you do.
Especially with their pen. You're not losing games in the 7th.
Exactly. So the first inning last night, he looked like just such a mortal, such a normal, good pitcher, but they were singling him. It's like, what is going on? This didn't happen last year. They get 2 runs that inning. Then he loads the bases in a third with none out, and that balk was like, he did his little spin at the end of it on strike 3, and then the umpire ruled balks. And
they never call that. Never.
Right.
I got warned for that. Like every time I pitched, the ump always warned me at least once, hey, make sure you come set.
And it rattled it because next 2 were balls, and he walked it.
Yep. Well, that's that. When you do your little twirl and you think you're out of the inning, that's that mental shutdown, and then having to kick it back on. That it throws you off your game for a minute.
So Cranny picked the right time to come out there, just like before that could have, because they were 1 hit away from getting in another 2 or 3 runs, or a grand slam. I mean, so, but it lit a fire on me. He said, if Strider said, you know what? A good pitching coach knows when to come out and light a fire, and that's the mark of a good pitching coach. And he certainly knows when to do it.
And he knows who can handle it. There's certain guys you got to go out there and kind of tiptoe around it. But
he's
when
not.
You got a horse like Strider, you can go out there and just say, let's fucking go. Like snap out of it, buddy. It's time.
Yeah. So he comes out there with bases loaded, none out, and the only run they got after that was Will Myers' ground out. Infield ground out. That's it, because he retired the last 9 batters he faced. So that's a huge momentum thing for him. And I think right now that last night will probably end up being the key to his season, because I think when he comes out next time, I think we're going to see the Strider from last year.
He's going to start the game in that mode. I mean,
99.
But you got to learn those lessons. I mean, you can't learn that lesson without going through it and realizing that's not me. And he'll probably answer. Now you can answer questions about this the rest of your career. If anybody questions, why aren't you going deeper into games, or why are you throwing 101 in the first with nobody on?
Right.
And he's like, that's who I have to be my best. And you could point to this game. You can point to any moment and say, I tried that. Okay.
Right.
It's not that I haven't tried it. It doesn't work for me. Next question. So it's a good thing. It's a good experience for him.
So he ends up going 5 innings, charged with 4 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks. And for, a bad start, when you can do that and still get 9 strikeouts.
Yeah.
So now he's got 7 straight games with 9 strikeouts or more, and he's 1 from John Smoltz's franchise record.
His fastball is just, when he lets it eat, I mean, good luck. You got to run into it. You got to get lucky.
He needed 75 pitches in the first 3 innings, 23 in the last 2. And that's with 5 strikeouts in the last 7 batters.
I'm telling you that aggressive, convicted pitch, that's another reason why you see so many young guys come up, and especially if they get hit early on. Like, that was the worst thing that could have happened to Schuster's giving up a knock on his first pitch.
Yeah.
Now you're like, oh, can I hang in this league? And you're asking yourself questions. You get timid, start fiddling around the zone. Then when you finally come in the zone, you're still not that convinced you can do this, or that it's a great pitch or your stuff's good enough. And that's when you get rocked. And when you're convicted, it's like you throw a fastball right down the middle on a tee and it's a pop out to center field.
Yeah. Strider in the post-game interview, man, it's like, I'm just watching him going, you know what? I could count on one hand the number of guys that I've ever interviewed after a baseball game who are as composed, mature, smart as this guy, that take criticism the right way, learn from mistakes instead of having to hang in his head after that game. He's so matter of fact. He's still got a sense of humor. I mean, this is the way, if you're a pitching coach, you're like, that's the way I want a guy to react to what I'm trying to tell him. He says, I feel like it goes, not my best effort for sure. He said, I feel like I sort of put the team in a bad spot. You got to credit them for picking me up and finding a way to win the game. I got to get better. It's early. There's a lot of time to do that, but I'm certainly not pleased with my performance. And I give credit to Cranny for coming out there and saying some things to me that I won't repeat. I think that's what I needed to hear. That's the mark of a good coach, is knowing when to light the fire. And he definitely does. He sounds like he knew exactly what he needs to do going forward. We asked him about the dip in his velo this year, because everybody sees that and they're so ingrained to think, Tommy John, he's got an injury.
No, maybe he's trying to pitch.
Yeah, he said, you're right, and I'm aware of that. Talking about Sal Fasano, the catching coach, who talks to, by the way, like he's talked to Strider between innings, like every inning since Strider came up last year. They talk like every inning. Sal's a smart dude, but he talks to him after every inning. And he said, Sal and I were talking about that. I think some of that I've been struggling with is I've been trying to pace myself and worry about going deep in the game and being economical. That's not what I do. What will allow me to do those things is competing with my strengths, and that's throwing with full intensity and being fully engaged and aware every pitch. I haven't been doing that, so that's my fault. Fortunately, the team's picked me up these last 2 starts, but consequently, I haven't given my best effort. That's sort of an external gauge of my intensity, I think, is my velocity. And so to see it kind of pick up at the end of the game was comforting, and just a confirmation that I need to find a bit more competitive edge in me that I've been displaying my last couple of starts.
Yeah. I mean, I think you saw similar, that's probably similar to what DeGrom was.
Yeah.
Because everybody likes to point out that he's thrown harder each and every year, but maybe he's just learned that it's okay to be at 98% effort.
Yeah.
It's just, these are all just lessons you learn along the way, and everybody finds their gear. There's also, on the flip side, there's guys that go out and they throw as hard as they can, and it lights up the gun and they get shit on. And they realize, like, hey, I can take a little off and make pitches, and I can do it this way. I can move the ball a little bit. Maybe I could throw more off speed. I don't just have to be brain dead out here. But each guy, there's not one formula that works for everybody. And some guys got to live in that very high, convicted, angry, aggressive mindset, or that everything changes and they just start getting hit.
Yeah. I've been of the school of Smoltz talking about DeGrom, that, he's not going to last until he takes a little off, but maybe that's DeGrom. Maybe he's like Strider. Maybe they are 2 of a kind. And maybe DeGrom knows that won't work for me throwing 96, 95, Yeah.
And DeGrom doesn't miss. I mean, and same with Strider. He's still making pitches. It's not like when he jumps up to 100, it's all over the place. He's still making pitches at 100. And for him to make a pitch, a great pitch for him is middle up in the zone. Yeah. Or middle down the zone, or he can hit corners. Same with DeGrom. DeGrom paints. So whatever effort level he's painting at, if the gun says 101, fine.
Fortunately for Strider, he's much younger. He's only had the TJ, but not other injuries. The oblique is like, a lot of people get obliques. But so far, knock on wood, he's in such great shape, and his mechanics are so smooth, and he's got, we've talked about, how much he uses his leg. So maybe he'll be able to avoid all that kind of crap that DeGrom goes through, being a tall, rangy guy but we'll see. The other big development last night that was so comforting for the Braves was seeing Eddie Rosario get some results, because he's been
barreling the ball.
He's been killing the ball, but no results. I mean, bad luck. Last night he hits the go-ahead homer, proves to be the game-winning homer. crushed a high fastball. It's funny, after we was talking, it was off Buck Farmer, and I asked him about it last night because it was really high up in the zone. And he said it was a high fastball. I faced him a lot when he was with Detroit and I was with Minnesota. And I know he likes to throw high heat on 2-2 fastball, so I was kind of ready for it.
Yep.
These guys don't forget, man.
Oh no, I forget now, but while I was playing, you could ask me about a May at bat from 2007, or like when I was telling you I gave up a home run to Nelson Cruz on the exact same pitch. Like you remember those things forever. I couldn't remember what I ate for breakfast, but you could ask me about a pitch from 6 years ago that, to Marlon Byrd, and I'd tell you the whole at bat. And it's weird, but it's such important information.
Chipper was crazy how he could remember, like take you through an at bat, pitch by pitch from 10 years previous, man. Yeah. I was like, holy shit.
What?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Snit on Strider last night, before we move on from Strider, Snit said, I told him, because we said, Snit came in after Strider in the interview room. We said Strider talked about how he's been trying to pace himself and it hasn't worked. That's why his velo's down, he thinks. And Snit said, I told him when he came out, he's still learning. He hasn't experienced this yet. He burst on the scene last year, struck everybody out. And then you come in and now you're more aware of what's going on. It just kind of seemed like one inning kind of got away from him a little bit. And I think Cranny's visit was probably the best visit I've ever seen. Got him refocused on what he was doing. And then he finished really, really well and efficient throwing the ball again. So they're going to go through this. He's a young starter that's still learning. He hasn't experienced a whole lot yet, but just to see how he corrected things tonight was very encouraging, I think, for the next time it happens.
Yeah, that's a score one. For me, that's also a score one for the Dinosaurs moment, because you can bring in a lot of coaches that can give you all the numbers and tell you what you're supposed to do, but that feel and understanding pitchers and knowing this guy needs a kick in the ass right now.
Right.
He doesn't need to be told what pitch to throw or what his mechanics are doing. He needs someone to go out there and handle that mental side of it. Like wake your ass up.
There's nothing on that analytics. Nothing on that analytics page that would tell him now's the time to go talk to him. No. Nothing. That's total feel.
Or maybe it is time to talk about what to say.
Right. Total feel.
It's a feel thing.
He walks,
and that's just an experienced baseball man.
Yeah. No doubt. Ozuna is the kind of the black cloud hanging over the team right now in his performance, I should say. Not the cancer people think he is in the clubhouse. I've talked about that before. The guy's fine in the clubhouse. The guys like him and all that, but his performance stinks right now. And Snit's in a bad spot. He's a tough spot because, he's on the roster. That's not Snit's decision. He's owed $37 million, including this year, next year, and the buyout. And the Braves have tried to give him as many opportunities as they can. And he's going to keep getting them for now, because with Darno out, that's the other DH, the main DH they'd be using. And you don't have that with Darno out. So
he's not going to get better on the bench either.
No. And, he had a good spring. He hit balls hard, and you feel bad for Snit because he's up there trying to explain, hey, he had a good spring, but now Snit said, but now's what counts,
Yeah.
Spring doesn't count, but now
I don't know if I've ever heard a Brave get booed that loud. I text you when it happened because I could hear it on TV.
Yeah. That was the only time I've heard a Brave probably get booed that loud, at Truist Park at least, and going back now 20 years I've covered them anywhere. The only Brave I can remember getting booed that loud at home was Ozuna after the arrest, the domestic violence arrest. After that, he got booed pretty loud for a while after that.
Yeah, and that has a lot to do with it. It's not just his performance.
Right, it's not just performance, because they wouldn't be booing. The Braves crowd is closer to, it's not St. Louis, because St. Louis, they don't boo their own unless it's really, really bad. But the Braves crowd is a lot closer to that than it is to, say, the other end of the spectrum, Philadelphia or New York. Yeah. Braves crowd does not eat its own. They don't boo their people. They're loyal. It takes a lot to really piss them off. But having a guy hit a little dribbler with the bases loaded, or strike out with the bases loaded, on top of having been arrested twice, and they know exactly how much money he's making, why he's on the team, all that's played out in public these days. So he's going to have to live with it. The only way he's going to turn it around is by hitting. That's it. Yeah. You can smile all you want and do everything, but you're going to have to hit. Especially when you're only playing a lot of outfield, you're DH, and you got one thing to do, you got to hit.
Yeah, no, he does. But I mean, that's why it caught my attention, because I can't really remember. Yeah, I mean, in New York, you could cure cancer, and if you strike out 3 times
Right.
that night, you're getting booed off the field.
Exactly.
But in Atlanta, I can't remember too many occasions. I know BJ took some boos a few times just because he had a big deal, but he was still a good guy. The stuff that happens off the field, though, you know, and then you're not performing, and it's the same thing, you know. That if you're performing, if you're hitting 350 but 6 homers right now, you're getting cheered, you know, regardless of what you do off the field. But the combination of some off the field stuff and struggling with a contract, you know, it's like the perfect formula to get booed when you struggle. So I feel for any player that goes through that, because it is not a good feeling, and you already know you suck, but it's getting to that point where I think sometimes though, I think it does start to force the issue a little faster. If a guy's on the fence and you hear the whole stadium boom, I think teams tend to react a little faster in those situations.
Yeah. If he's not hitting when Darno comes back, I mean, I don't know how much farther they'll go before they're willing to eat, because they're going to have to eat it right now. I mean, if you trade him, you're not going to get a team to pick up hardly any of that. And they're not going to lump a good prospect. This is not like the rebuilding days when they're trying to shed payroll and they traded Kimbrel to get rid of BJ Upton. They're not going to do that right now. They're not doing that. They're not going to get rid of a good prospect to get rid of this guy. So they just eat it if they have to at some point.
Yeah.
But I didn't even mention that Olson's 448-foot home run the other night, 118.6 mile exit velo.
It was 118.
Hardest hit homer in the majors this season. Hardest hit ball ever by a Brave in the StatCast era. 118.6.
Man, I thought Acuna would have gotten.
Tyler Flowers had the previous high, 118.5. That was like on a single.
Couple of big dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. Acuna's got a lot of them really high, but just not quite there.
118.
But yeah, Olson, man, it's got that leverage when he gets extended. Whew.
Yeah, and he's just, like Kelly said, when a guy comes into spring training locked in like that, and you know that, I think we talked about it, but you don't put too much emphasis on a minor league guy doing it or somebody that's never had a big season. But when you see a vet, you know, that's not going to be overwhelmed by any type of pitching, it's more up to him.
Yeah,
you know, it's more up to his swing, and that tells you his swing's locked in. And when you have some changes to back it up, you know, if a guy comes in and he's just raking to start the year and shrugging, like, I don't know, it's one thing. But when he says, no, here's everything I did to change, and I feel that good about it, and then they go out and back it up, I mean, it could be a crazy steal of a deal the Braves got on him.
That came in the same game that was Kyle Wright's season debut, which did not go well, but it was really just one terrible inning, the third inning. None of the guys I talked to were at all concerned. They said his first game back, adrenaline rush, all that. Yeah. He'll be fine because the stuff was there. He's throwing hard. The first 2 innings were fine, but the third inning just went. It was like one of those old Kyle Wright innings that he just could not get out of. Like last year, it didn't happen like that. He was able to get out of those innings before they spiraled, and this one spiraled. But he said it felt great, the shoulder, and that's all the Braves really cared about. The shoulder felt great, he said, and the ball's coming out. Snit said the ball's coming out fine. So they'll worry if it happens again, but nobody seemed concerned at all about that outing.
You win 20 plus.
Yeah.
It's going to take a few rough ones for me to worry about you.
Right. And he's only made, 3 starts, I think.
Yeah.
Because he missed so much of camp. Yeah, he's missed so much of camp.
But I wonder if without the injuries, if he would have gotten another 1 or 2 to sharpen up or not.
He would have. I think he would have. And the really thing stood out to me was how many curveballs he threw, because the fastball he had the sinker going, I thought, and I asked him about the curveball. He said, because he threw like all curveballs in that third inning. He was walking guys on curveballs. And I asked him about it. He said, it was really the only pitch I had a feel for. He goes, I didn't have the feel for my fastball, even though, like I said, he was throwing it with velocity. It just, he didn't think he could get guys out with it. He felt in that third inning, about all he could get through was the curveball. So he was throwing tons of them, but I guess that wasn't a big deal. But that's what he said.
Sometimes, I mean, you're getting away with a pitch and kind of like trying to nip it in the bud, knowing I'm missing a lot with it, or
right.
He
said he was leaving his sinker arm side. He couldn't do anything. He was trying. He couldn't do anything about it. And he felt comfortable with the curveball, so he had feel for it. Said he was going to have a lot to talk to Zach Sorensen about this week, the mental performance coach, because he said he usually can get him right back in line when he talks to him about it. Baseball 2023, man. And then last thing I wanted to ask you about was Freddie Freeman's at bat last night.
I was watching that.
Oh, or plate appearance, I should say. People call it an
Yeah.
at bat. Technically wasn't because he walked 15 pitches. And it was the classic Freddie Freeman. I don't know if anybody else in baseball can produce plate appearances like that better than Freddie Freeman does. Fouling off pitches in every quadrant of the strike zone. He's unbelievable when he does that.
His hand-eye coordination is it's unreal. And his swing's so short. I mean, there was 2 or 3 of those. He was obviously sitting slider at the end of that bat or going to do damage on a slider. And there were fastballs right down the middle. He basically hit out of the glove. But I mean, that's lefty, bases loaded. Freddie Freeman as a lefty is like the last guy I want to face in that situation. And I was watching it and I was telling my wife, I was like, if he hangs him a slider here, Freddie is going to hit it over the center field scoreboard. Like this thing's going over the Jumbotron if he hangs it. And he either would yank it for a ball and Freddie would auto take it like it was nothing. And then he kept hanging him. And I think the only reason he didn't get hurt bad in that at bat is because he kept hanging it up in the zone where Freddie couldn't play the break. It was getting deep on him. But Freddie's still the guy that can get that. The backup slider is supposed to be the toughest pitch in baseball. And his hand-eye coordination is so good. He could keep fouling those off. And then the fastball down the middle, he's fouling off. But, he's looking to just drive a slider into left center field and staying on everything else. And, as a lefty, you're not going to throw him a changeup. So there's nothing else to really do there but just hope Freddie gets himself out. And he didn't. And it was like a 6-minute at bat.
And that's the thing. With that short swing, he doesn't miss one of those pitches. Most guys are going to miss one of them or they're going to chase. And then he fouled some that were out of the zone, but he didn't really chase a really bad pitch. And then to draw a walk on that, you almost never see that. Those almost always end in a strikeout, because he's in swing mode.
Mm-hmm.
And he spits on that pitch and draws a walk. I'm like, oh my God.
The guy had nowhere to go.
if the inning hadn't been a disaster already, the pitcher probably should have tipped his cap to him, but it had been a disaster. The guy threw 30 pitches, 15 of them were strikes, and he walked all 4 batters because one of them was a pitch violation.
He threw his glove in the garbage after that, too.
Then he walked off and threw his glove in the garbage when he came out. The Freddie was the 4th walk and brought in the go-ahead run.
I was watching that. Like,
Were you watching it live?
Yeah, I'll throw on a West Coast game, late at night once we finally get the kids to bed. It's usually Dodgers. I can't watch the Mariners because I want to watch them, but not bad enough to sign up for whatever Hulu or streaming program. I just don't want to register. I'll pay the money. I just don't want to go through the process and I'm blacked out. But it's usually Dodgers or Padres or somebody's online. And so I get to watch Freddie a lot still. And man, he's a special player that I feel pretty blessed to have gotten to see, all the way through his career.
Who was the pitcher? Taylor
Rogers, I think.
Taylor Rogers. Yeah, Taylor Rogers. Is that the guy that used to be with the Marlins? I don't know.
I'm not sure, but he's been good for a bit. I mean, it wasn't some dipshit lefty. He's been one of their guys for a while.
And boy,
once he cashed them all in, reliever. That's the thing that happens to you, especially after you throw your glove away because the baseball gods are watching. But that's the thing that happens to you. After one of those outings, you go sit on the bench.
Yeah,
reliever comes in and Muncy hits a moonshot over the right field fence.
He crushed it.
You're just like, oh, sweet, 4 runs. It's gonna take me 3 months to walk that off.
Your guy for the Mariners is finally doing something, man. Hellenic, yeah. Man, his numbers have been so bad before this year.
Oh,
he's hidden.
It was all up in his head.
Yeah.
I talked to a buddy about it. It's a big Mariners fan. And, it's like that deer in the headlights, putting too much pressure, getting distracted by all the chaos of the big leagues. Yeah. Watching him. Then he had this game last year. He hit like a walk-off or a game-winning single or something. He did something big in the game. So he was going to get the Gatorade shower and they threw the Gatorade on him. He was just pissed off and annoyed. And that's like, oh, he might be turning things around. It looks like he finally died inside.
Yeah.
Like this dude's over it. Yeah. He's finally broken and has nothing to lose. And that's where you need to be sometimes to succeed in the majors. But he's been going off this year.
He's put together, man. He's got a base.
He's got it all.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he's good. He had a ball like 480 last night at Wrigley.
Oh, he destroyed it. Yeah. All right. We will do another one of these from San Diego. I'll be in San Diego next week. That's going to be a big series, man. Braves be looking for a little payback after the Padres dumped them.
Yeah. Those are the game. Those are the series though that you know as a team you got to go in and show something because that's who you're going to be seeing. You know, in the postseason. So you want to get, you want to send a message. You know, during the season when you see them too, that they're going to have their hands full with you.
Especially seeing them so soon after they just won 3 out of 4, 3 straight at your place.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you don't want to lose. Yeah, you don't want to lose that series even 2-1 because then you've lost 5 out of 7 against them. You know, and then you don't play them again the regular season. So that's kind of weird.
Going to the playoffs and they know they had your number,
right?
So it kind of puts them off on the right foot when the series starts.
And I think the Braves are smart to wait because Fried could pitch in a Royal. He'll be eligible to pitch in a Royal series, but they're not going to use him. They'll use him in a Padres series. I think that's smart.
Yeah,
he'll come back without a rehab start. He's been throwing because the injury was hamstring, so he's kept his arm. He only shut down throwing for like 2 days, so I think he'll be fine. But
so he's just kind of not ready to cover first yet.
Right. That's all he hasn't done. He's done other stuff, fielding bunts, all that. He's thrown off the mound, live BP, that kind of stuff. So. All right, so we'll do it from next week from San Diego. Appreciate it, everybody. 755 is real. We are out.
Cool.